Careful everyone, in this video there will be heavy consumption of HOPIUM. So what has transpired yesterday from Blizzard's own announcement was the reveal of the release date of Season 4. We talked just a couple of days ago about the expected duration of Plunderstorm being roughly 6 weeks, meaning it was going to end April the 30th, meaning likely Season 4 was going to come out on April 30th or at best 1 week later. Turns out Blizzard was actually going in the opposite direction. It wasn't 1 week later, it was 1 week earlier, and the announcement is for Season 4 to begin April the 23rd. So approximately 3 resets from now is when Season 4 will go live. Funnily enough, we also mentioned yesterday the nerfs given to Tindral and Ferak, mentioning the low kill count at the moment of Ferak. Now, with the season ending in just 3 weeks, we might even get into one of our first sub 1000 cutting edge results at the end of a tier. Since Ferak right now is barely at 800 kills, so we would have to get 200 plus more to be able to break the 1000 barrier in just 3 weeks. The other thing that was pointed out were the continued nerfs to Season 4's dungeons. However, what was the hope as we kept looking at the changes to the dungeons wasn't just the dungeons being tuned, but also there was the hope we were keeping our tank of high quality grade Hopium about the possible fated affix for Mythic Plus to be announced somewhere, sometime soon. Well, looks like the chances are now even scarcer. We are now possibly having to admit that we are definitely not going to get any special shiny new affix for Mythic Plus. Yes, we are continuing, even with this announcement, to get balance tuning changes to the dungeons. A couple of dungeons not greatly touched by previous nerfs have been adjusted. Now we have Alderman nerfs, where the Lost Dwarves now they have 50% less damage on Fiery Surge, and more importantly, the very annoying Burning Pitch, the flame patches on the ground now are almost half as big. So it's going to be easier to move around on that boss fight. More importantly, the very hated dot damage done by Sentinel Talondras has been reduced, 20% less damage from the initial hit and 12.5% reduced damage of the bleed on players. Emberon has a, I guess, no must dispel help. The burning heat dot it puts on all players now lasts for 6 seconds instead of 10, so it's not going to be nearly as terrible to not have a priest on that fight. Help with the trash on Ruby Lifepool, the upper level trash, the Primalist Flame Dancers now have 25% less damage on the channel of their Flame Dance, and Kirak now only targets 2 players with Flame Spit instead of 3, to finish with another boss weirdly missed by the nerfs, which was Vexamus in Algetar Academy. The Mana Bomb periodic damage has now been reduced by 20%, and even better, the corrupted mana now has a slight delay before inflicting damage on players, which means now you can make it drop on your feet and move out of it without actually getting the tick of damage from the ability, which is also very good because it came in combination with the mana bombs. So it's even less damage taken on the fight. So it's all good when it comes to balance changes of the dungeons. It's still gonna be quite sad that the prospect of Season 4 will be to just replay the original Dragonflight dungeons without any new fresh things to apply to those dungeons. You know, some interesting fated affix. One of the fun requests were the power effects, you know, the kiss curse affixes, like you have to do something bad, but if you do the bad thing, you gain some haste, you gain some crit, you gain some damage, even some movement speed, you know, something cool, which we are not getting this season. Now, we have mentioned the main positive W of Season 4 a few days ago, which is the Bullion, the reworked Dinar, which you will now receive more often. You will be able to buy more items with it. There is also going to be an avenue for you to continue to make use of these Bullions by buying upwards of hundreds of different transmog appearances for the 3 different raids in all difficulties, etc, etc. So that's a very good addition to the season. We were still, of course, expecting a little bit more. I'm not gonna say players are going to be missing the fated affix from the raid, because while the fated affix from Mythic Plus was quite a demanded request from players, the one from the raid, a little bit less. It wasn't exactly making things any better. And when it comes to the raid, it is perhaps a little bit better to go back to the older raids you haven't been playing in a while compared to Mythic Plus. So the demands for the extra fated feature were mostly limited to Mythic Plus, not really really to the raid. Now here is where we have to start to make use of our stockpiled sources of HOPIUM, because executive producer and dev Holly Longdale posted a tweet about the season, and she mentioned something weird about modern experiments, saying that as we're getting close to the next expansion, they want to continue to provide updates, and that now is the time for us to spin some experiences. Now the weird part is, of course, that for now Season 4 hasn't really given us anything new, anything extra, anything special. That's where we get to make use of the roadmap made by Blizzard themselves about their content in 2024, where you see that after the release of Season 4, which now we know pretty much is at the very beginning of May, what follows before the pre-patch of the next expansion is going to be 10.2.7, which includes time running Pandemonium. Now the word time running is already similar to time walking and might refer to something from the past, something we have already done, for example. And guess what happened a few days ago when it comes to data mining features from 10.2.6 was the data mining of a few hundreds of recolored assets and textures from items and mostly gear and weapons from the Burning Crusade. So recolored weapons, recolored shields, offense, and even armor sets from TBC. And these were data mined from 10.2.6. So with this in mind, and with the notion that 10.2.7 will have a new feature, time running Pandemonium, which might refer to going back in time to do something, this might be referring to the Burning Crusade in some capacity, some of the raids of the Burning Crusade becoming, I guess, relevant again. So perhaps that is where we see the lack of significant changes, for example, in the raid, not really adding anything new, because we have planned a new patch about a month after the release of the season, which will have as a feature the addition of, I guess, a new take on an older raid, like, say, for example, Black Temple or even Sunwell Plateau from TBC, since many/most of the data mined items are from raid bosses. That is the one Hopium-filled take we can have for this season. Maybe we don't have anything new and shiny now, but we might get it from 10.2.7. Now, obviously, the weird part about this is that we actually don't know. So it would be pretty awkward for players to say, well, you know, Season 4 is coming out, but nothing new is happening, so I won't really bother playing, who cares? And then, you know, a few weeks later, Blizzard announces 10.2.7 with a bunch of new stuff, and players already quit the season. So perhaps, even if there is something interesting new coming in 10.2.7, it would have been a smart idea to actually warn players before the release of the season that, you know, if you bear with the bare state of Season 4 for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, you get to get something new in 10.2.7. But for now, this is just speculation. We don't actually know what's gonna come in 10.2.7. So many players will just look at Season 4, check out what's new, and they will be like, okay, there is a new dinar, which gives us more gear and faster. I can get more transmog appearances with it. That's cool, but Mythic Plus is the same with nothing new. The raids are the same with nothing new. There is also no new zone, no new rep, no new faction or anything like that, so that's kind of boring. So perhaps they could have led with some spicy news about the future content together with the announcement of Season 4. Since the risk right now is that as they announce Season 4, many players will just not really bother due to the lack of new content. But this, nevertheless, is what we have for today. The announcement of Season 4, together with further nerfs to the dungeons of the Season 4 Mythic Plus pool, and the possible distant Hopium take about 10.2.7 coming to fix the lack of new experimental things, which is ultimately what the fated season was created in Shadowlands. The whole point was, we don't want you to have a 1 year long season of the same thing over and over, so instead you're going to add this extra experimental season where we're not putting too much effort into it, because most of our developers by now are working on the next expansion, but we still add a few enough new things to keep you interested in the season. That was the point of the fated affix in the raid, the fated affix in Mythic Plus, etc., etc., which is of course not what we are getting in this season. So you're wondering then what was the point in the first place of the season. So at this point, that's the hope that 10.2.7 will change something. However, these are the news for today on this announcement day for the release of the next season. So I'm leaving all of you to the rest of your Wednesday, starting the goodbyes by thanking all of the Patreon supporters, together with everyone else who is supporting for free, like for example liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as of course subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these questionable things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I hate this time in particular of spring. Either you are cold or you are hot. Not like change from morning to afternoon to evening so quickly.